Good morning, everybody. This is Scott Presler. I'm live in West Baltimore. We're doing our second cleanup today. We said we'd be back, so here we are. We're gonna be out here from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. picking up trash, so please come join us. We need as many volunteers as we can get, and let's show people that we give a darn. We care about our community, and we want to show an outpouring of love and affection for the city of Baltimore. We're at the corner of North Fulton Avenue and Westwood Avenue. Thank you.
Making Baltimore beautiful. That was the goal as trash cleanup efforts continued today in West Baltimore. And WJZ is live. Paul Gessler on what brought Republican volunteers back and who joined them. Paul?
Hi, Denise. Yeah, conservative activist Scott Presler had a similar cleanup last month. Today, even more volunteers, 140 now today. This after the president tweeted about West Baltimore's living conditions, and he came back today.
Clean up time.
For Louise Brogdon, this effort in front of her West Baltimore house is a sight for sore eyes.
I'm for the neighborhood, but you can't do it all by yourself.
Put a smile on my face. I love it. I know something being done.
Dozens of outsiders here in Baltimore Monday.
Cleaning up the actual trash is probably the priority.
To pick up trash, cut down weeds, and clear out alleys.
I think this is the best I've seen in about 10 years.
The only thing 311 do is give you a whole lot of confirmation numbers, but they don't send nobody.
Outsiders like Joe Glassman, who took the day off work and drove the hour and a half from Virginia.
People cooperating to solve problems. And if I have to take a day off and sweat and get nasty and do that kind of stuff to maybe prove that point, then hell yeah, I'll do that.
There is a common thread among many of the volunteers.
Gee, Paul, I wonder what that common thread might be. Hello, everyone. Welcome to NeoUnrealist. This channel's secure, right? I mean, I don't have to talk in code since it's just us, right? I mean, the plan goes well. Scott Presler's fiendish plot to own the Democrats by organizing Republicans in groups of over 100 to head down to West Baltimore and clean it up a block at a time, it went into phase 2 yesterday.
Hey everybody, it's Scott Presler. We're wrapping up here in West Baltimore. We got here at 8 a.m. It's almost 6 p.m. And let me tell you, after over 140 volunteers, after 2 dumpsters and 2 truckloads worth of trash totaling 7 tons, we're wrapping up. But let me tell you what today was all about. We made a promise that we would come back to the city of Baltimore. I told Miss Louise to her face we'd be here. So we did, we showed up. We wanted to show people we care, we give a darn, that we do love the city of Baltimore, that they do deserve respect and dignity. So Miss Louise, we will be back in October. Thank you to every single person that made today a success, and I'm so proud to be part of this project. Thank you all.
I know, it sounds crazy. I mean, everybody knows that it's Democrats and the left that actually accomplish more for West Baltimore. You know, by clapping back at President Trump on Twitter, staging press conferences to denounce Trump when he talks about Baltimore, and, you know, holding protests when Trump is expected to be in Baltimore. You know, but just hear me out on this. I mean, you remember how all this got started, right? I mean, back at, was it the end of July, beginning of August, when President Trump, he was dragging Congressman Elijah Cummings over the state of West Baltimore, which, you know, it's in his congressional district. And I'm sure you can recall all the orange man bad stories in the media. Why so much media attention was drawn by the president's tweet to the poor trash-strewn streets of West Baltimore that no less than Al Sharpton himself roused himself from the comfy environs of his Harlem, New York, house of justice, and made the trek down I-95 to Baltimore to clean the city up. Oh wait, I'm sorry, he actually held a press conference and wrote an op-ed in the New York Times.
I know Donald Trump, he's not mature enough to take criticism. He can't help it. He's like a child. Somebody says something, he reacts. He's thin-skinned and not really matured that well.
Because you see, for Al Sharpton, it's all about standing up there in front of cameras when he thinks people might be watching. Standing there with the very Baltimore officials and leaders who failed Baltimore and criticizing the president. He gets the opportunity to write an op-ed and have it published by the New York Times when otherwise they wouldn't care and he wouldn't get that opportunity. That's what's important to him. I mean, since Al Sharpton flapped his gums criticizing the president's grammar and vocabulary when he talks about his political opponents, Republican activist. Now, activist, isn't that what Al Sharpton bills himself as? An activist, right? Republican activist Scott Presler, since that Al Sharpton presser and op-ed in the New York Times, he's been to Baltimore twice. And when you add it all together in those 2 trips, he and those who answered his call to action, they've taken away 19 tons of trash from the streets, the alleys, and the abandoned house yards, of West Baltimore. Now, you see on August 5th, the day of the first Baltimore cleanup that Scott Presler organized, it was no less a personage than Darrell Lamont Jenkins thought it was necessary to send out a tweet, directed at people in Baltimore, in all caps, "Heads up, Baltimore." I mean, what's with the caps? This is not a drill. So Darrell Lamont Jenkins wrote, "If you are anywhere near North Fulton Avenue and Westwood Avenue, a full well-known neo-fash glory hounds like to pull stunts and pretend they're not, namely Jack Posobiec and Scott Presler, are in Baltimore making like they are doing a cleanup of the city." Yes, you see, old Darrell, he saw right through Scott Presler's fiendish gay op. Well, I guess technically Scott is into dudes, so just this one time, I guess you could say it's a gay op unironically. Good old Darrell Lamont, he wasn't falling for it. He put up that bat signal to let the residents of Baltimore near North Fulton and Westwood Avenue know to be on the lookout for Republicans with trash bags, rakes, and work gloves, or else they might have to take all the trash off of their sidewalks and alleyways and leave none for them to complain about to their Democrat-elected leaders about. I mean, you know how those Republicans are, going into Democrat-run cities under the scorching hot August sun and doing hard physical labor for free to make someone else's neighborhood cleaner and more sanitary. Damn them and their oppression. The tyrannical yoke of volunteer neighborhood cleanups, it must be stopped. So we need to follow the example of people like the good Reverend Al Sharpton. You see, when Trump tweeted about all the garbage in Baltimore, good old Reverend Al knows that actually solving the problem, physically removing the trash, and thus in some measurable and tangible way improving the lives of the people who live there, no, you don't do that. You do nothing. You keep things the same for the residents of the afflicted area so that you, the activist, can do things like send a shakedown letter to the CEO of one of the largest banks in the country, Brian Moynihan of Bank America, to, quote, discuss issues affecting the minority community. The Reverend Al, he found it important to, quote, begin a dialogue. A dialogue. Yeah, that's going to pick up the trash in Baltimore. What sort of dialogue do you think Al Sharpton wants to have? Oh, yes, you see the homeownership rate for the constituency that he panders to remains under 50%. So he tosses in some buzzwords like systemic disadvantage and greed, and the bottom line is that the good old Reverend Al, he wants Bank America to pay him some protection money. I mean, that dialogue that he's talking about, it would go something along the lines of, hey, nice big bank you have there, Bank America. Be a shame if someone started organizing protests in front of it. Hence the casual mention of Bank America being involved in the unsettling actions leading to the 2008 financial situation and systemic disadvantage and greed. Al's been at this game a while. Why go to the trouble of cleaning up a neighborhood in West Baltimore, which gets you no financial payoff, when you can grift a major bank out of a new stream of money for him or one of his allies to direct as they see fit? You see, Scott Presler, he saw politicians arguing back and forth with each other, but in the meantime, the very people being argued over continued to wade knee-deep through garbage. He naively assumed that when he called for people to get together and go do something constructive about the problem, that it'd be seen as a net positive. No. What he got was a snarky editorial by the Baltimore Sun editorial board. I mean, the title, check it out. We assume it was pure motives that led a Trump supporter to launch a cleanup in Cummings District, right? I mean, come on, the nerve of the Baltimore Sun. Let me write a counter headline for them. We assume it was pure motives that led a Baltimore local newspaper to not do or say a damn thing to clean up in Cummings District, right? I mean, the venom and spite-filled editorial even finished nasty. The last sentence was more or less taunting Scott Presler, and it read, In the meantime, we'll see how clean the neighborhood still is when he returns in September.
Hey guys, this is Scott Presler. I'm here in West Baltimore at the site of where we cleaned up trash last time. Now, if you remember, this right here was completely covered in trash, and a month later, there's barely anything, which is good. We are making progress. Even though we did clean up this entire alleyway right here, as you can see, there's a tiny bit of debris, but we will be back tomorrow to help pick up trash right here. And if you go across the street, this alleyway over here was also completely covered in trash, and look, almost nothing. So yes, the work we did last month cleaning up trash on August 5th did make a difference, and we're gonna not only make sure that the places that we cleaned up before stay clean, but we're going to expand to other blocks as well. So thank you to everyone that helped us clean. We'll see you tomorrow, Monday, September 9th, here in West Baltimore.
I mean, was the Baltimore Sun rooting for people to specifically go to the North Fulton and West Avenue area and dump trash there so that they could write a scathing "I told you so" follow-up editorial? I mean, let's assume for a moment that Scott Presler's intentions are 100% selfish. He's motivated purely by hardball partisan politics, that this shiny-haired man from Virginia is in reality the most cynical and calculating political actor you could ever imagine. What is the downside of him spending one day a month in an area of West Baltimore with over 100 of his friends and anyone else who shows up to remove garbage? I mean, the city isn't doing it. Al Sharpton and his National Action Network, they aren't doing it. Darrell Lamont Jenkins, he's not leaving New Jersey to do it. Me, I'm not doing it. All I'm doing is making a stupid YouTube video about it. Not all the talking and writing nonsense about it in the world picked up even a single scrap of paper or took away a broken toilet out of the yard of some abandoned house. It was Scott Presler and the people putting into effect his fiendish plan to pawn the Dems by hauling away 19 tons of trash in 2 trips a month apart. I mean, this is ridiculous. I realize we argue about a lot of things, but at some point, the basics, you can't argue. There's no Republican or Democrat way to pick up the garbage or fill potholes in the street or plow the snow. I mean, some things, especially at the local level, are as simple as you either do them or you don't. If you're the mayor of Baltimore, you run an efficient city where the trash is picked up, the streets are clean, law and order is restored, and when it snows, the streets get cleared, the schools churn out educated graduates, etc., etc. I assume you're doing that at least in part for your own political benefit. The system is ideally set up to run that way so that politicians who fail to accomplish those bare minimum tasks that you're expected to do, you know, that they get voted out by voters when they get fed up. Something's broken down in America's big cities. And I think it's because of the demographic flight of the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. You know, the constituents in cities who might have voted Republican in the past, you know, they left to live in suburban and rural areas. And this left cities which, you know, already tilted heavily blue, but would still turn to Republican figures like Rudy Giuliani in New York City in bad times when Democrat failures had just become too much to ignore. It now left the big cities one-party fiefdoms where failed Democrat after failed Democrat comes and goes. They have no incentive to do the heavy lifting needed to avoid the electoral risk of people getting so fed up that they vote for a Republican. I mean, how many mayors has Baltimore cycled through in recent years? I mean, these mayors that get elected in deep blue places like Baltimore, you wonder how they could possibly get elected if it were a competitive race. I mean, they're overtly lining their pockets, or they're so inept, it's clear they're so inept that you wonder how they could manage their own affairs, let alone a city. Anyway, to Scott Presler and those people who answer this call, good job. To the Baltimore Sun, and if they're so suspicious of Scott Presler's motives, you know, that they're to make West Baltimore somehow MAGA country, all they got to do is get a bunch of Baltimore Sun editorial board members together and a bunch of your friends, buy a pair of work gloves for everyone, and head on down there wearing your Biden 2020 t-shirts. If Scott Presler and his people turn you away or in any way impede your effort to pick up the trash, I'll post a scathing video condemning the partisan hack Scott Presler and his dastardly plan to clean up West Baltimore to troll the Dems. That's all for this NeoUnrealist. If you want to help the channel, do me a favor. Hit like for this video. Leave a comment below. Mash down on the subscribe button if you're not already subbed to the channel, and click on the notification bell next to it. You put it on the all setting if you want to keep up with newer content. But if you want to contribute directly to the channel and toss your hard-earned dollars into the tip jar, follow the links below to Subscribe Star or PayPal. And if you want to watch this on BitChute, you can just click on the green tip pledge button on the video player. Now, it's about that time. You've sat through the e-begging portion of the video, and you've listened to me go on about a naive Republican activist who thinks he can overcome decades of Democrat inertia and neglect. You've shown a degree of mental toughness to last this long, so go ahead, take another tick on that countdown towards your diehard achievement. Thanks for watching.
Who they vote for, where they come from, I know nothing. I figure we all are family. I'm glad to come. I don't have no, whatever you vote for, that's your business.